All right. So it is getting recorded now. Okay. So I had stated this first order necessary condition for minimum to exist. Okay. So let us recall the statement of the theorem. So omega is a subset of Rn, and function f uh, is a function from Rn to R. So it's a real valued function, but its domain is a subset of Rn, and the function f is assumed to belong to C superscript 1, which is the class of all continuously differentiable real valued functions. And again, let me remind you, I think just as a matter of formality, what is meant by this is that the first derivatives, so this is a multivariable function of n variables. So each of the partial derivatives, so partial derivative with respect to x, partial derivative with respect to x1, partial derivative with respect to x2, and so on, and partial derivative with xn, each one of them is continuous. Okay, that is what is meant by the function being continuously differentiable, and then we denote it by saying that f belongs to C superscript 1. Okay, and let this function be defined on omega. Fine. Now, if x star is a local minimizer of f over omega, then for any feasible direction d at this particular point of minimum or local minimum, this condition must be met. Okay, that's what it says. Now again, I think this concept of feasible direction is so important. So I think I would like to recall this definition. Let us revisit this definition one more time, because after I have proved this theorem, I'm going to discuss the proof of this theorem. I'm going to take you through one example, and there the role of this feasible direction will become amply clear. Okay, so let us revisit the definition of feasible direction in case you have forgotten it. It's worth going through it one more time. Okay, so the definition of feasible direction is this. One second. Let's see. So we had to go back and forth. Can't help it. Yeah. No, so this is the definition of local minimizer. One second, please. What happened? Where is this definition of feasible direction? One second. Okay, here it is. Okay, so vector d belonging to Rn, a non-zero vector d belonging to Rn, is a feasible direction at a given point in the domain of the function if there exists a alpha naught positive, there exists alpha naught positive, there exists that article is missing here, alpha naught positive, such that this vector x plus alpha d belongs to the domain, it stays inside the domain for all alpha belonging to 0 to alpha naught. Okay, so this is what the definition of feasible direction means. And again, I had shown you one picture. Let me show it again. I think the point, probably I did not make the following point. I did not trace it properly. So let me just show it to you again. So are you able to see this figure? Is it visible to you all? Hello?
No, sir.
No, am I holding it correctly? Please help me. It's not, why is it not? I mean, I am holding it in front of the camera.
Sir, I think your camera is off.
Your camera is off.
How come? How come?
Yes, sir, your camera is off.
Okay, how? Okay, so how do I turn it on? 1 second. Yeah, okay. Fine, fine. Sorry. Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you are able to see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Now, a point to be noted is that I think I should have mentioned this last time. So, if you look at this, so this is the point X, okay, and we want to define a feasible direction at point X. All right. Now, this point is an extreme point. So, this is the D1 here, D1, the one which is going in this direction inside the domain. That is a feasible direction. Whereas if you look at D2, which is emanating from point X, but going in this direction, that is not a feasible direction, because it is not staying within the domain of the function. Is this understood? Because I think this very point, this particular point is going to come up when we discuss the solution to the one of the examples. Is this point understood? So one more point I want to make. So you take any point, interior point. So if you take a point inside this domain, then all the directions are feasible directions. All the because there we can always find alpha naught greater than 0, such that x plus alpha d will lie entirely inside the domain for all values of alpha between 0 and alpha naught. But the same thing cannot be said about a point when the point lies on the boundary of the domain. So you can have a direction which is not feasible, and here is an example. Okay, so I hope that I have explained this concept now. Okay, so let us get started with the proof of the theorem. Okay, so X star is a local minimizer. Okay, and we of course we have read the the statement of the theorem, and we want to show that this happens, this condition holds. Okay, so now so the proof goes as follows. There are uh, several proofs that are available, that can be thought of for this theorem. So one proof goes as follows. So let x alpha be defined as x star plus alpha d and belonging to omega. Okay, so let this be this. Note that at 0, when alpha is equal to 0, this is equal to x star. That is obvious. Now define the composite function phi alpha is equal to f of x alpha. So this is a composite function. Okay, and now if we apply Taylor's theorem, so by Taylor's theorem, f of x star alpha d minus f of x star, okay, which is same thing as phi of alpha minus phi of 0, because we just defined. So if you replace x lower bar alpha, this vector, by, so this replace this by this, and that is what I did here. Okay, and that is nothing but phi of alpha. So phi of alpha is equal to f of alpha, f of x alpha is equal to f of x star plus alpha d. And then we also observed that, so x0, so phi of 0 is f of x0, but f of x0 is equal to x star. So I can replace these two terms by these terms. And now I apply Taylor's theorem. And by applying Taylor's theorem, what we get is that this difference So in fact, Taylor's theorem says that phi alpha is equal to phi 0 plus phi prime 0 times alpha plus small o of alpha. Okay, small o of alpha. I hope that is clear to you, because you know when you say this is equal to this, when you take this term to the left side, you get phi alpha minus phi 0 minus phi prime 0 alpha is equal to small o of alpha. And if you divide, so what does that mean? That means that phi alpha minus phi 0 over alpha minus phi prime 0, that approaches 0 as alpha tends to 0. That is what the meaning of small o of alpha means. Okay, and that essentially means that that is the derivative of phi, first derivative of phi with respect to alpha evaluated at alpha equal to 0. So I think this makes sense. Now, so alpha I have written as it is, and phi prime 0 is nothing but the inner product of these two. This is actually, there is a lower, this lower bar is missing here. So d transpose delta fx, delta f evaluated x0 plus small o of alpha. This is again small o of alpha, where alpha is greater than equal to 0 by definition. Okay. So I hope this is understood. Now, if phi alpha is greater than equal to 0, if phi alpha is greater than equal to 0, that is if, so saying that phi alpha is greater than equal to, phi alpha is greater than equal to phi 0, saying that phi alpha is greater than equal to phi 0, same thing as saying that this is greater than equal to this for sufficiently small values of alpha positive. Okay, because in the limit phi alpha minus phi 0 over alpha, in the limit this is what is happening, and then so you have this. So this is sufficiently for small alpha. This is actually, you know, you have x star is a local minimizer. So if it is a local minimizer, by definition, this is what you have. And then what happens? So that it's amount to, this is same thing as saying that this difference, this is greater than equal to 0. So this difference is greater than equal to 0. That is same thing as saying that this is greater than equal to 0 for sufficiently small values of alpha. Okay, and that will force, since this is greater than equal to 0, alpha is greater than equal to 0, that will force this term to be greater than equal to 0. Okay, and this last part of the proof is actually based on the following exercise, and this exercise is easy to prove. So if the function f is from Rn to R and g is from Rn to R, and if the functions satisfy this, that is fx plus gx. So these are both are real valued functions. Okay, and both the functions are from Rn. So fx plus gx is equal to small o of gx. And if gx is positive for all x, all vector non-zero vector x, then for all sufficiently small x's different from 0, fx is negative. Fx is negative. Okay, so that actually, that you know, that follows from the definition of this thing, small o of gx. Is this understood, or do you want me to explain anything that I have missed? It does make use of this, and the exercise, this is very straightforward, and this is dependent on the fact that, see, this is dependent on the fact that if fx is small o of gx, let's say. Now I think this exercise is dependent on another exercise, but that is just a simple implication from the definition, and it says that if fx is small of gx, then we want to show that for every epsilon greater than 0, there exists a delta positive such that whenever the norm of x vector is smaller than delta, then epsilon value of fx is less than epsilon times epsilon value of gx. Okay, so that I think that again follows from the definition of small o of gx. That is just one line proof, and this is also one line proof. Okay, so that I have not given this proof here. Probably I think I have included this in the problem set number 1. But if it is not, I don't remember exactly, but if it is not part of problem set number 1, then I think these two can be easily proved in one line. Okay, so can I take that the theorem is proved, or is there any step that is not understood? Okay, there is some message. Let me see what it is. Okay, I think one of the students is asking, does due date 21 mean we have to submit the assignment? Yes, of course. Due date 21 means you got to submit the assignment, the solutions by the this thing night of 21. Okay, so you should turn in your solutions by let's say 9 o'clock, by 9 p.m. Okay, fine. All right. I thought he's which platform. Okay, that I shall let you know. Okay, I think Naresh is asking which platform. That I shall let you know tomorrow, because I have not I have not been able to have discussion with our system administrator. Okay, and I need to find out what is the best way for you to submit your solutions. See, what I understand, if you submit your submit your solutions to this platform, MS Team platform, I think I'm told that let's say student A submits it, then the student B will have access to solutions submitted by students A, and vice versa. That is what I understand. So, okay, let me talk to our system administrator, and I'll let you know in tomorrow's lectures without fail. Okay. All right. So now I thought there is some technical question. That's why I went to chat and wanted to find out. All right. So do I take that the theorem is proved, or are there any questions? And if there is a step, I think this proof is pretty straightforward. But if you are not understood a particular step, you just need to sit down and then you need to work out the details, or maybe you need to stare at it for some time. But it's essentially the proof is quite elementary. Okay. All right. So I'll go to the next topic. Okay, I think, yeah, this is already mentioned, and there is, as I said, there is a alternate proof also. So first note that the can be expressed as this. Okay, I think see that this condition again. I think let me just quickly again. This is very straightforward. I am sure many of you are able to figure it out by yourself. Okay, so this necessary condition actually it arose when we try to look at this one. So in fact, we showed that this is equal to this, the inner product of D and the gradient of F. Okay, that is what we showed. So now we are expressing it in this form. So this necessary condition is being expressed in this form. And first note that the first order necessary condition can be expressed as this for all feasible directions D, and that is because, again, I have written the explanation, that is because this is equal to this. Now X star is given to be a local minimizer, and therefore for any feasible direction D, there exists alpha upper bar positive, such that for alpha belonging to this holds. Okay, and because X star is given to be a local minimizer, therefore this is valid for alpha belonging to this. And hence for all alpha belonging to this interval 0 to alpha bar, we have this, the difference divided by this alpha greater than equal to 0. Okay. Now taking the limit as alpha greater than 0, we conclude that this is greater than equal to 0. And that does it. And so this is second proof, again pretty easy to understand. All right. Now let us look at the corollary. to this theorem that we just discussed is the interior case. So let omega be a subset of Rn, and again if let f belong to C superscript 1, a real valued function on omega, and let's say let x star, which is the local minimizer of f or omega, be an interior point of omega. Let this be an interior point of omega. Then this necessary condition, it reduces to this. The necessary condition reduces to this. When it is not an interior point, the necessary condition said that this be greater than or equal to 0. But if this point at which a local minimum occurs, of the local minimum of f occurs over this, if that happens to be an interior point, this necessary condition, it gets converted into this condition. Okay. Again, the proof is very elementary. So suppose that f has a local minimizer x star that is an interior point of omega. And as I said a while ago, because x star is an interior point of omega, the set of all feasible directions at x star is the whole of. Okay. I think this is a very important point, and that is because x star is an interior point of omega. So you can go in from x star, you can go in any direction that the entire vector that will lie inside the domain of the function. So any direction is a feasible direction. That is amply clear. Okay. And thus, because of this, for any vector d in Rn, by earlier theorem, x star being a local minimum, this condition must hold, because this is a necessary condition for x star to be a local minimum from earlier the theorem that we just discussed. From this for any d, this must remain valid, as well as at the same time this also must remain valid. So whether you consider d or minus d, these two statements must remain valid. And then these two statements, this greater than or equal to 0, the negative of this greater than or equal to 0, will force this quantity to be equal to 0. Okay, for all d in Rn. Now, if this is to remain valid for all d in Rn, so that implicitly says that delta fx star must be 0. Okay, so that is where the proof of the theorem ends. Okay, all right. Now, okay, I think one question that I want to ask you, and this is how we're going to do it, is that, of course, you would know it. I'm not going to make any, I'm not about to make any profound observation. This is a very elementary, but nonetheless, I must make it. Okay. So what this, again, under this, all these hypotheses, I'm not going to repeat it. If x star is a local minimizer of f, and if d is any feasible direction, then this condition is valid. So this implies this. So if A implies B, then not B implies not A. So if this condition is not valid, that will go to show that x star is not a local minimizer. Okay, so that is how this theorem can be used. If you want to prove that particular point in the domain of a function f is not a local minimizer, all you need to do is you need to show that this necessary condition, first order necessary condition, is invalid at that point. Okay, and that's how I think this theorem can be exploited. Okay, so that is getting demonstrated. The use of this theorem is getting demonstrated in the next exercise. Okay, or example. Okay. So example 2.3. All right. Again, this is appearing in the book. I know this is. I mean, this is not that I have worked out any new example, but I think it's worth discussing this example. So let's consider this problem of minimization of this function x1 square plus x2 square by 2 plus 3x2 plus 4.5. Okay, 9 by 2. So this is a function of two variables. So you have a function f from R2 to R. So it's a real valued function. Okay, and you want to locate the minimum of this function, or let's say a local minimum or a global minimum, subject to the constraint that x1 and x2 are non-negative. So all the points, they lie in the first quadrant of the Euclidean R2 space. Okay, that is the constraint. All right. Now, first question that we want to answer is that, is the first order necessary condition, which is abbreviated as FONC. This is, I'm just writing this for the first time. I will not keep writing it like this. So is the first order necessary condition for a local minimizer satisfied at x equal to 1, 3. Okay, so this is a vector. So this is a column vector 1, 3. So is the first order necessary condition satisfied for this? That's what. So the first condition, if FONC, first order necessary condition, says that D transpose the gradient of the function evaluated at this point must be greater than or equal to 0 for all feasible directions. Okay. So first let's try to answer this, and then we look into the second part. Okay. So f is a function from R2 to R. This is given by this. Okay, note that the point 1, 3 is an interior point of this. That's an important observation. This is easy observation, simple observation, but nonetheless it is important to make this, because then all the directions are feasible directions. Okay. So again, so now we don't have to, we can appeal to corollary, we don't try to appeal to theorem, because if the point happens to be interior point, then the necessary condition is this, not that this be greater than or equal to 0. Okay. So we need to verify this condition now. All right. So at x is equal to 1, 3, at this point in R2, the value of the gradient, so it is easy to see that its function, so the first derivative with respect to x1 is 2x1, and the first derivative with respect to x2 is x2 plus 3, and that is what I have written here. And when this gradient is evaluated at 1, 3, you get 2, 6, which is not 0, 0. So at this point, this must be, this necessary condition says that this must be 0, whereas this is not 0, 0, and the point does not satisfy first order necessary condition for a local minimizer. Okay, so that was very easy to see. Now the second part says that in the second part we are supposed to verify if the FONC for a local minimizer if it is satisfied at the point 0, 0 or not. Okay. Now the question is, how does the x1 and x2 are such that they are non-negative. So this is an extreme point. This is a point that is lying on the boundary of the domain, right? This is a point which is lying on the boundary of the point. So now let's see. So this case is interesting. This was not interesting because this point was an interior point. So at x0, 0, again, so if you evaluate this thing at 0, 0, it's quite clear that the value of the gradient at 0, 0 is 0, 3. And therefore, the inner product of vector D and the gradient at 0, 0 is 3 times D2. It's 3 times D2. Now for D to be feasible, for D to be a feasible direction, we need D2 to be greater than or equal to 0 and D1 to be greater than or equal to 0. Do you all see that? I think this is where I need to take short pause here. Okay, so maybe I think again, let me just show you this. So these are the level curves or level sets of the function that is under consideration. So these are the level curves. Okay, and then you have x1 greater than or equal to 0, x2 greater than or equal to 0. and this 0 0 lies here, is the origin. Okay, now this point, so all the directions are not feasible directions, that is obvious. Okay, now for D to be feasible, we need D2 to be greater than equal to 0 and D1 to be greater than equal to 0. And hence, X00 satisfies the FONC for a local minimizer. Is this understood? Or do you want me to go over it one more time? Okay. So, okay, I did not receive any response from you, so I presume that you have understood what I said. So this is also a relatively simple case. Now let us look at a third case, though I decided to include the third case also. Okay, so I hope this is understood. So the necessary condition is satisfied for a local minimizer 0 0. All right. So these are the level sets for fixed values of a function, fixed value of fx. All right. Now the next part is, here in this, is the FONC for a local minimizer satisfied at 1 0, right? So this is an interesting case again. Is the FONC for a local minimizer satisfied at 1 0? Now we know that 1 0 lies here. So this is 1 0 lies here. Let me see whether I have, yeah. So 1 0 lies here. Are you able to see it? Is this visible? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. So 1 0 is here, right? This is where 1 0 is. And the inner product of D and delta fx turns out to be 2D times 3D2. Now so D2, okay, will be in this direction. So D2 has to be greater than equal to 0, but D1 can take any arbitrary value in R. So D1 can be any real number, but D2 needs to be greater than equal to 0 because the point at which we are trying to determine a feasible direction is this point 1 0. And at this point, D2 has to be greater than equal to 0. D2 cannot be chosen arbitrarily, a point in R, whereas your D1 can be any number in R. Okay. So what, okay, how did I arrive at this? How did I arrive at this? Again, I'm not, again, this is pretty straightforward, not that it is very difficult. Okay, I'm just trying to look up 1 second, I'll tell you. So this is, I'm looking at, yeah, right. Okay. So what you need to do is, again, so the point of interest is 1 0. Okay, x. Then I look at x plus alpha d. Okay, x plus alpha d. So that is 1 0 plus alpha d1 d2. And then so 1 0 plus alpha d1 d2 gives me alpha d1 plus 1 comma alpha d2. And since this must lie in the domain of the function which is x1 greater than equal to 0 and x2 greater than 0, so this really, I worked out this for you. So I need this to be, this must lie in the domain, and then so alpha d1 plus 1 must be greater than equal to 0. That means alpha d1 must be greater than equal to minus 1. Okay, and alpha d2 greater than equal to 0, that will mean d2 is greater than equal to 0. But alpha d1 greater than equal to 1, I can always choose alpha. I can always choose alpha such that this number is greater than equal to 0. Okay, so even though, see what I'm saying is, even though d1, so the point is that d1 can be any number on real line, and that is possible because I can choose alpha suitably such that the alpha d1 plus 1 is greater than equal to 0. So I hope this is understood. So I think you need to sit down and work out these details. I mean, uh, maybe I think for some of you, maybe I think may be able to uh, figure it out by just going through these notes or maybe looking at the what is given in the book. But what I'm saying, first, maybe some of you may need to sit down and really need to realize that uh, d2 is greater than equal to d2 must be greater than equal to 0 and d1 can be any this thing. So it takes a while to realize, to understand that how can d1 be d1 how can d1 uh, how is d1 allowed to take any real value. That's, I think, it takes a while to understand. So essentially, so one needs to go back to the definition of feasible direction for to really understand that concept. Okay, and so for example, so when, for illustration's sake, let d be from -5 to 1, and this is a feasible direction, because there we can, for this d1 equal to -5, one can always get hold of some alpha or alpha naught, such that for alpha between 0 to alpha naught, this will lie entirely in the domain that is in the first quadrant of the R2 plane. Okay. But if you look at these two, the inner product of this, so this is a feasible direction, no doubt. But when I look at the inner product of D and the gradient at this point 1, 0, that value turns out to be equal to -7, which is less than 0, and thus this point does not satisfy the first order necessary condition for a local minimizer, and this cannot be a local, this cannot be a point of local minimum for the function f. Okay, I think just to emphasize it further, let us go through this also. So is the FONC for a local minimizer satisfied at x03? Now at x03, the value, we have delta fx equal to 0, 6 transpose of this vector, and hence the inner product is equal to 6d2, where d is equal to d1 d2. Now, so the point now the 03, so point 03 lies here somewhere. So 03 lies here, and therefore your d1 has to be, d1 must be greater than equal to 0, and d2 can be any number. So that's what that is what turns out to be. So we need d, so for d to be feasible direction at x, that is important, it's a feasible direction at x, we need d1 to be greater than equal to 0, and d2 can take an arbitrary value in R. D2 can take an arbitrary value in R, and the point 03 does not satisfy the FONC for a minimum for a minimizer, because D2 is allowed. Now D2 itself is negative, right? We say D1 is positive, but D2 can be negative. But the inner product of D2, the inner product of D and the gradient at this point 03 is equal to, is only in terms of D2, and since D2 can assume negative value, so this can be made to take negative value, and therefore the necessary condition, first order necessary condition, is not met for this point 03, and therefore it cannot be a minimizer. Okay. All right. I think this is all important. I think, in the sense, yeah, to determine whether a function attains a local minimum in a particular neighborhood, I think one can employ this result. Okay, so now I think we turn our attention to theorem 2.2, and this theorem provides second order necessary condition, and which is abbreviated as SONC. Okay. So again, I think, okay, let's continue with this, and then I want to make one comment, so I shall make it before the class ends, today's lecture ends. So let omega be contained in Rn, and let, now in this case, we are assuming that f belongs to C superscript 2, of function on omega. So again, C superscript 2 means it is the class of all functions whose first order and second order partial derivatives are continuous. Okay, so I think I have said enough about this notation, so I don't need to emphasize it further. All right, so we have this x, this is a vector in Rn. This is x star is a local minimizer of f over omega, and d is a feasible direction at x star. So the existence of feasible direction is given. Now further, if the inner product of these two at evaluated at x star, this local minimizer or at a local minimum is equal to 0, okay, then this real number, this is a quadratic form of this matrix, this d transpose f x star, again this is lower bar is missing here, but I think from the context you know what it is. D is greater than or equal to 0 where f is the Hessian of f, Hessian of function f, sorry, Hessian of small f. So again, okay. So this hypothesis is understood. Then in addition to this hypothesis, if this condition holds, then this must hold. That's what the theorem says. Okay. Now the result is proved by contradiction. Okay, so let us go through the proof. Again, proof is relatively straightforward. Okay, so the result is proved by contradiction. Suppose that there is a feasible direction d. Suppose that there is a feasible direction d at x star, such that this is satisfied and this is less than 0. So there is a feasible direction such that at point x star this is 0 and this is less than 0. That's what we're going to assume, and then we're going to arrive at a contradiction. Okay. Now again, as seen earlier, let x alpha denote this vector x star plus alpha d and define the composite function to be this. So again, we are familiar with this, quite familiar with this. Okay. Then again, if you apply Taylor's theorem to phi alpha, this function is a composite function, then this is phi alpha plus phi alpha is equal to phi 0 plus phi prime 0 alpha over 2 plus phi double prime 0 alpha square over 2 factorial plus small o of alpha square. But that alpha times phi prime 0 is equal to 0 because of the assumption, because phi prime 0 is nothing but evaluating this at alpha equal to 0, and at alpha is equal to 0, this is assumed to be 0. That's why this is 0, and that term disappears from this expression. Okay. And further, what we have is that phi double prime 0, this is less than 0. That is what we are assuming. We are assuming that this be less than 0, and then so this is less than 0. Okay, this is what we are assuming. All right. So for sufficiently small alpha, this is what we have. Phi alpha minus phi 0 is equal to phi double prime 0 alpha square over 2 plus small of alpha square. This is less than 0 for sufficiently small alpha. Okay. This is less than 0. This is so from this what we get is phi alpha minus phi 0 is equal to this plus this. But we are not saying that this is 0, this is less than 0 for all. So this is less than 0 for sufficiently small alpha, because you know what this means is, so if you take this to this side, then the limit of, so this whole thing is equal to small of alpha square, means that if you divide each of the terms by alpha square and if you let alpha go to 0, then the limit is equal to 0. Okay. So that's what, so essentially what we are, so for sufficiently small alpha, this thing is less than 0, but that is phi alpha minus phi 0 is less than 0 for sufficiently small alpha. But we know that phi alpha is this and phi 0 is this. So that will amount to saying that f of x star plus alpha d minus f of x star is less than 0. And so that means that, so this will mean that x star is not a local minimum as is mentioned in the hypothesis of the theorem. X star is assumed to be local minimum, right? So this is what the statement says. X star is a local minimizer of omega or of f omega. So what this implies is that x star is not a local minimum, and which contradicts the assumption that x star is a local minimizer, and thus we cannot afford to have this to be less than 0, because that actually violates the hypothesis, contradicts the hypothesis, and therefore this must be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, of course this is valid when this condition is satisfied. If this is satisfied, then we are saying that this must be greater than or equal to 0. As per the first order necessary condition, we require that if x star is a local minimum and additional hypothesis is satisfied, then this must be greater than or equal to 0. But now what we are saying is that if it belongs to C superscript 2, and if this is equal to 0, then this condition must remain valid. So that completes the proof of the theorem. Okay. All right. Now, so interior case is separated from that, and it is mentioned as a corollary. So here the x star could be an extreme point, need not be an interior point. So let x star be an interior point of omega. So if x star is a local minimizer of f from omega to r, so it's a real valued function, and f belongs to C superscript 2, then of course this follows from corollary 2.1. Then this holds, and fx star is positive semi-definite. Fx star is positive semi-definite, that is, for all d greater than or equal to 0, this is greater than or equal to 0. So if it is an interior point, then, well, we don't need to assume this. This comes as a byproduct of corollary corollary 2.1. Sorry, yeah. Is someone trying to say something? And fx star is positive. So if fx star this, then this holds, and then fx star is positive semi-definite, that is for this is greater than or equal to 0. Okay. So again, I think the proof is one-line proof. If x star is an interior point, then all directions are feasible. I think this is a very key observation, and I have mentioned it at the beginning of today's lecture, and I hope that point is very clear to you all. The result then follows from corollary 2.1 and theorem 2.2. Okay, because from theorem corollary 2.1 this is valid, and therefore the hypothesis of theorem 2.2 is satisfied, and that will mean that this is also, this necessary condition is met. Okay, and the proof of the corollary is complete again. I think this was simply an observation. Actually, that's not a proof. It's a simple repercussion of the earlier statements of the theorem and corollary. Okay, those things follow very easily. Okay. Now let us, just one point that I think this example makes is the following. So let f be a function from R to R and be given by this, and note that f prime 0 is equal to 3x square. When evaluated at 0, it is equal to 0. F double prime 0 is, f double prime x is 6x. When evaluated at 0 is equal to 0. So the point x equal to 0 satisfies both the first order necessary condition and the second order necessary condition. However, x equal to 0 is not a minimizer, and this shows that the necessary conditions are not sufficient. Okay, so I'm sure everyone knows how the graph of the function looks like. Graph of this function looks like. I think I don't need to dwell on this too much. Okay, so but the point, I think the point that this example makes is very important, that the conditions of theorem 2.1 and theorem 2.2 are not sufficient. Those are necessary conditions. That is what this counter example is trying to tell us. Okay, fine. Let's look at the next example. Let's see what this example is trying to tell us or convey to us. Okay, so here let it be a function from R2 to R, and the function be given by this. So it's a function from R2 to R, and the function is given by this. Now, so the gradient of this function is 2x1 minus 2x2. That is obvious. Okay, and the first order necessary condition requires that this be 0. This gradient vector be 0. Thus, and this is 0 at x0, 0. So x0, 0 satisfies the FONC condition, the first order necessary condition. Okay, fine. Now the question is that the is D transpose fx star D, is it greater than or equal to 0? That's the question that we are trying to ask ourselves. Okay, so the Hessian matrix of this function f, again it is easy to see that the Hessian matrix is 2 0 0 minus 2, because the second derivative of this is 2. Second derivative with respect to x2 is minus 2, and the second derivative with respect to with respect to x2 is 0, of this with respect to x1 is 0, and this is the Hessian matrix. Okay, and note that for D equal to 1 0, you get it to be equal to 2. This is okay, this is positive, whereas at D2 this is equal to minus 2, less than 0, and this shows that 0 0 does not satisfy the SONC, second order necessary condition, hence it is not a minimizer. Okay, so here is an example where you have a point where the first order NC necessary condition is satisfied, but the second order necessary condition is not satisfied. Okay, so just because first order necessary condition is satisfied, nothing can be concluded. But second order necessary condition is not satisfied. Okay, so what can you conclude? So it is not a minimizer. That is what that is what one can conclude. Okay, so I think the following theorem provides sufficient conditions for this thing. I think now time is up. Let me not overshoot. Okay, I think the one thing that I wanted to say was, if you have any suggestions, I said this in my first lecture. If you have any suggestions regarding the delivery of the lecture or the topics that are being covered, any suggestion that you may have, please pass on those suggestions to me through Aurojit. Aurojit, you can say Aurojit is I'm regarding as a class representative for this course, and you can pass on your suggestions to him. So your name, I mean, then you can do it anonymously, and then he will he'll send an email to me saying that students feel this. Okay, so I'm welcome. I will welcome all your suggestions. Of course, I'll give due thought to those suggestions and try to take them into account. Okay, so I think I have said this. I'm saying probably I'll say it last time. I will not keep it repeating, but I'm giving you an opportunity to pass on any suggestion that you may have. Okay, I'm willing to look at them. All right then. Okay, I'll let you know about the submission of your the solutions by tomorrow in tomorrow's class. Definitely. All right. Bye. I'm going to stop the this thing recording.